Well, this is what I'm saying, man, is like, I don't want to, you know, I've done so many prep series in the past. I don't want to do the same thing, you know. Like, it's been done. I've done the you know, here's my check-in, here's my training, here's my cardio, this is my diet, this is the subs I take. You know, all of that. I mean, it's important and I want to show that, but I don't want it to be, I want to go deeper. Yeah, I want to go to a different level. I want to go deeper. I want to go to the psychological side. I want to go to the mindset side. I want to share, you know, my struggles with people. And, you know, it's not, yeah, I'm a pro athlete and I'm preparing for a pro show, you know, and trying to get myself to the Olympia. But at the same time, like I run a fucking legit business at the same time, you know. So it's not. That's the sort of shit that I want to be sharing with people. Is it's not just, you know, this is my main focus. This is one of many focuses. This is throwing another ball into the juggling act of all of the shit that I'm trying to do. I'm just not interested in doing another prep series the same way it's been done. It just, like, to be honest, man, it just bores me. It bores me to do the same shit. I want to do different shit. You guys heard it. This one's going to be a little different. Pro Prep Season 2. Let's go. So it's no secret how Pro Prep Season 1 ended up. I did a full prep that spanned over 26 weeks. It was over 6 months of the year from start to finish. And I never got to finish. I finished my prep, but I never got to make my pro debut at the Arnold Sports Festival Australia in 2020. At the end of that prep, started peak week. Got to 6 days out and the coronavirus pandemic swept the globe and really kind of took hold here in Australia. And the Arnold Sports Festival was cancelled 6 days out, which means my pro debut was cancelled 6 days out. I went through that entire prep and wasn't able to make my pro debut. Obviously, there was talk after what happened in the US a couple of weeks ago. They cancelled the expo, but kept the pro show. So they kept the pro bodybuilding and pro physique and all the pro divisions, but they cancelled the expo and everything else around the Arnold USA. So, you know, I was expecting that to happen here. You know, worst case scenario, expo's still on at this point. Who knows how that's going to play out, but the first thing they've gone and cancelled is the pro show. Fuck. Yeah, I've never experienced anything like that in competing before. You know, doing a prep of that length with that much excitement behind it, that much anticipation behind it. You know, the very first men's physique pro show in Australia. You know, having some of the best, not only the best men's physique pro athletes in Australia, but the best men's physique pro athletes in the world coming to that show. And going through that entire prep and getting to 6 days out and you know, learning that everything that I had worked so long and so hard for was not going to eventuate. It was, I mean, you know, it was documented in Pro Prep Season 1. It was really, really difficult. But I guess it was, you know, it was a little bit of a double-edged sword, the pandemic hitting, because it hit so fast in Australia in particular. I had like a couple of days to feel sorry for myself, and you know, kind of be upset and be pissed off and frustrated and all of those emotions. And then it was like, holy shit, like I have a business to keep alive. With the lockdowns and the border closures and supply chain issues and exchange rate issues, and it was literally, you know, an absolute clusterfuck of everything that could possibly go wrong from a business perspective going wrong pretty much within 2 weeks. So I didn't get a lot of time to really dwell. You know, I had to switch out of pro athlete mode, switch back into businessman, you know, operations mode, and try and figure out what the fuck to do. I got to a point where, okay, you know what, now I can really give some thought to what I'm going to do competing wise. Firstly, the chances of there being a men's physique pro show in Australia are very, very slim, especially considering the international borders are closed. Then the chances of me being able to travel to the US or to Europe or somewhere internationally to do pro shows and then get back into Australia is, you know, when's that going to happen? And so I was kind of put in this position where I'm like, well, I haven't competed since I turned pro in 2017. That was the last time that I got to step on stage, was when I turned pro, when I won my pro card. Obviously 2018 was a planned year off for me. I needed time to grow my physique, to develop my physique and go from, you know, a top amateur to a pro level men's physique athlete. So that was planned. 2019, I had planned to make my pro debut over in the US and do 2 shows in the US. San Jose Pro Show, Chicago Pro Show, and then shoot up to Canada and do the Vancouver Pro. Got into that prep. I pulled out of that prep, first prep I've ever pulled out of in all of my competing, you know, since 2005, and that was to deal with some personal issues, you know, marriage breakdown, and the flow and effects of that, and I just needed to prioritize that and really tackle those issues head on. So I pulled out of that prep, and then 2020, which you guys saw completely documented in Pro Prep Season 1, that was to be my second attempt at a pro debut, and that was kind of pulled away at the 11th hour. After that happened, and after I'd kind of worked through all of the business responsibilities I had to work through, it was a matter of, well, I don't know when I'm going to make my pro debut, so I'm just going to have to psychologically commit to an extended off season, however long that takes, whatever that looks like, and when the opportunity presents itself to compete on the pro stage, wherever that may be, whatever that looks like, you know, I need to be ready to pounce on that opportunity. Fast forward to the start of 2021, March, end of March, start of April 2021. There were rumblings of a men's physique pro show in Australia. So my position on that was, well, there's a possibility. I want to be ready to pounce on this possibility if it does go ahead. So I worked backwards from November 6th, 20 weeks back from November 6th, and said, all right, well, this is when I'm going to start. I'm going to start a prep at this point, tidy up my diet, go into a little bit of a deficit, bring, you know, a very small amount of cardio in, just get my physique to a point where if that show does end up being confirmed and if it does go ahead, I'm in the best possible position that I can be in to really turn up the blowtorch on a prep and be ready for that show. And then so 6 weeks on, the show gets confirmed. The very first Take 2 Men's Physique Pro Show in Australia confirmed for November 6th. By the nature of the border closures, in particular the international border closures, it is by default going to be an all-Australian Men's Physique Pro Show. And being a men's physique pro show on the way that the Olympia qualifications work at the moment, the winner of that pro show will automatically qualify for the Olympia in 2022. So it was kind of interesting psychologically when it was confirmed, because then I really had to make the decision, like, okay, you know, I'm 6 weeks into this you know, quite long prep at this point. It's been officially announced. What am I going to do? Am I actually going to commit and go through and you know, and put my hand up and say, yeah, I'm going to compete in this show, or am I going to weigh up the possibility that the show may not go ahead? Am I going to weigh up the risks? What am I going to do? And so I put some content up on my personal social media, and I asked a bunch of you guys. I said, what do you guys think? You know, what should I do here? What do you want to see me do? You want to see me do the show? What's your opinion? And I got mixed opinions come back. I think, you know, the majority of you were very encouraging and did want to see me commit, but then there were a few people that were like, nah, you know, with the state of the border closures internally, domestically, you know, there's still lockdowns happening in Australia. There's too much risk, you know, there's too much risk associated with it. So as I sit here recording this video, New South Wales is in lockdown and has been for quite some time and will be for quite some time moving forward. Victoria, or Melbourne, is back in lockdown, which is where this show is supposed to be on November 6th, is in Melbourne. Queensland, parts of Queensland are still in lockdown, but the majority of Queensland was in lockdown and just came out of lockdown less than a week ago. Here in South Australia, we were in lockdown just over a week ago. And as part of those lockdowns, you have border closures between states. South Australia and Victoria, the border's currently shut. South Australia and New South Wales, the border's currently shut. South Australia and Western Australia, the border's currently shut. The very strong reality of the situation is we are very much in the midst of this pandemic. There really is no guarantee what the current state of affairs is going to look like in November, and there is a very real chance that this show may also get pulled at the 11th hour, just like the Arnold Sports Festival did in 2020 as part of Pro Prep Season 1. And I got to a point where there are a couple of things that helped me make my decision. The first was regret mitigation. And what that looked like from my perspective was, what would cause me the least amount of regret? If I committed to the prep, did the prep, and the show got pulled 6 days out, like it did at the start of 2020, would I regret committing to that prep and putting my body and my mind and you know, everything into that prep for the show to not go ahead? Or would I regret the show going ahead, not prepping, and having to watch it from the stands instead of being on stage? And when I consider those two situations, for me, it's a very easy decision. The path of least regret for me is to commit to the prep, go through a prep and get to that point. I mean, it's happened before, right? It's nothing I haven't been through before. I did it in Pro Prep Season 1. And if I can do it once, I can do it again. I can handle that shit. So that was one side of my thought process. And the other side of the thought process was really what's important to me personally from a core value and from a behaviors perspective. And you know, one of the things that's most important to me is courage, is behaving with extreme amounts of courage. And I think that one of the best ways that you can demonstrate courage is to commit to a process without any guarantee of success. I mean, that's the ultimate measure of courage, right? Is you go through, you don't know what's going to happen, you can't see around the corner, you may not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you commit to the process, you commit to the journey anyway, and you deal with whatever happens when it happens. And that's very important to me personally. So When I consider that, it's very obvious to me that I am going to commit to the process. I am going to commit to the journey. I'm going to commit to the prep. If the show goes ahead, I'll be in the best possible shape, the best possible position. I will deliver the best possible physique I can deliver. If it doesn't, well, I've been through another prep and I'll be a better athlete for it at the end of the day anyway. So that's how I got to this position. That was the thought process. That was the mindset to get to where we are right now, which is 12 weeks out from the November 6th show date, and put my hand up and say, you know what, I am going to commit to the process of this prep. I am going to commit to this journey, regardless of what the outcome looks like. And worst case scenario, I complete a full prep, the show doesn't go ahead. I'm happy with that. I'll accept that. I've been through that before. I can go through it again. Best case scenario, the show does go ahead. I present the best possible physique I can present. It's good enough to get me a win on the day. It qualifies me for the Olympia. Fantastic.